difficult for an author, but you know, it's difficult from my perspective too. I try to take a reasonably balanced, but you know, but sensible approach towards a lot of books, and I find myself sometimes seriously undercut by somebody that, in my view, has no clue what he or she is writing about, and then our customers come in and say, "Well, you didn't like this book, and this person loves it. Who's right?" Or vice versa. Yeah. So I've learned to pay no attention whatsoever to anybody else. I just truck on.
Well, it keeps the writer's attention maybe on on his art.
Well, one hopes so. Two for Texas also obviously explores your own Texas roots, and I also noticed that one of the characters in it is named Holland.
That's right.
See any relation, son Holland, to any
I've
of these
written
Hollands?
four books about the Hollands.
So this is another branch of the family?
Yeah, that's right. And my great-great-grandfather was at the Goliad Massacre. He survived the slaughter of all those Texas boys who had surrendered under a flag of truce, and Santa Anna had promised them that they would be paroled and would be put on a prison ship at Matagorda Bay and sent to New Orleans. Well, on Palm Sunday, 1836, 500 of these boys were marched down the road toward the bay, and these Mexican women were lined along the road, and they began saying, "Pobrecitos, pobrecitos." And then one fella hollered out, "They're going to shoot us, boys, run for it." And some escaped, but 350 were clubbed and bayoneted and shot to death. And there was a woman there, she was a prostitute, and she had been the camp follower among the Mexican soldiers for a year or so. And she ran from one officer to the next and begged for these boys' lives, and that's how many were spared. And those that escaped called her the Angel of Goliad. And to this day, no one knows her name or what became of her. But those same boys joined up with Sam Houston at San Jacinto, and that's where they got even. And when Sam Houston made his speech, "Remember the Alamo," that was only part of it. He said, "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad. Because if Santa Anna leaves the field today, their fate will be the fate of every colony in East Texas." And they wiped out Santa Anna's army. I mean, it was terrible.
Well, Texas history certainly offers you endless novelistic possibilities, but interestingly enough, and I assume it has something to do with your going to college in Louisiana, your Robichaux books are set there. Did I hear it the other day, or at least learn, maybe Patrick told me, because he's one of our staff, so fond of your books, that Andre Dubus is your cousin?
He's my first cousin, and we were reared together. We're 4 months apart. And my family's home actually is New Iberia. It's a little town in southwestern Louisiana. And Andre and I spent much of our boyhood together in Lafayette. It's about 20 miles away. But yeah, he's a great writer. Andre is truly a great writer.
Was there some sense of rivalry here between you?
Absolutely. That's how I got started. When he was a freshman in college, he was a year ahead of me, and Andre won first prize in the Louisiana College short story contest. And the next year I entered, and I won honorable mention, which was pretty good for me because I'd been a very poor student in high school. But we've been each other's pace and horses ever since.
He's a very distinguished writer. We have quite a few people that that like his books, and that we, in fact, he has something new coming out this fall.
Meditations from a Moving Chair.
Thank you.
That's right.
I knew I had just ordered it. Was this Half of Paradise then the book, it was your first published book, 1965, is that right?
My first published one was Half of Paradise.
And then you went on to write To the Bright and Shining Sun. Is that the one that's set in the Appalachian coalfields?
That's right.
And resulted in part from what? You were working in Kentucky for a while?
That's right. I was an employee of the Job Corps and the U.S. Forest Service. Worked at a Job Corps Conservation Center.
Well, that was a 5-year gap, I think, between them. Actually, wasn't To the Bright and Shining Sun to some degree its shoulder? I mean, it got some kind of honorable mention for what, young adult? Library
Journal listed it, along with Dickey's Deliverance, as one of the best novels for younger readers of 1970. But see, I wrote Half of Paradise in 59 and 60. It took me 5 years to get it out. I always wrote more easily than I published. Then I wrote 2 others that I never published. Then I wrote To the Bright and Shining Sun and published it as my 2nd novel, but it in reality was my 4th. And then I published another novel, and I thought I was home free. And then I wrote The Lost Get Back Boogie, and it was 13 years before I got back in hardback print.
It was a long time. In fact, it was Two for Texas that intervened as a paperback original just a couple of years before Lost Get Back Boogie. And that was a Pulitzer Prize nominee, if
That's
I
right.
recall.
It was on the short list, I understand. It was rejected by 111 editors in New York, and it was under submission for 9 years. Philip Spitzer, my agent, is the only man in New York who is so self-destructive to keep a manuscript out there that long.
Fabulous.
He went broke handling me and Andre. That's right. He was driving a cab in Hell's Kitchen. That's a fact. He went flat broke. now he lives in the Hamptons. He's got I told him even his yard man's a Republican.
You rehabilitated him. Well, it's nice to pay your debts, I have to say. That's excellent. But, you know what I was thinking? I was looking at The Lost Get Back Boogie. I have a paperback copy of it. I know it came out as a hardcover, and then it was an owl. And indeed, you've got someone released from the Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana. And to some degree, it certainly has elements that show up in your crime novels, so it wasn't really a big jump for you, was it? To
not
move
at all.
Into the Neon Rain, which was your first Robichaux.
Mm-hmm.
You were fishing with somebody?
Yeah.
And he suggested to you that maybe since you tried these other forms and weren't having publishers just queuing up, that maybe you should try a crime novel?
Yeah, it's Rick DeMarinis, my old friend, and he's probably one of the most versatile writers in America, and I have great respect for his advice, and that's what he said. Try a crime novel, you've tried everything else. That's during that 13-year period. I couldn't sell anything in hardback. And I wrote I started the Neon Rain out in San Fran in longhand. And I sent the first 2 chapters to Charlie Williford, who's my old compadre. We were good friends for 20 years. And Charles said, you really got to find thing going. He made a couple of editing suggestions. And when Philip, my agent, sent it off to 3 publishers, all 3 made offers. And I was just stunned.
Boy, that's a dramatic reversal,
quite
wasn't
a turnaround. But it was LSU Press that put me back in business with The Convict, a collection of short stories, and they published The Lost Get Back Boogie, and then that's when the New York house, Henry Holt, picked up or made the best offer for Neon Rain. And so in 1985 I was completely out of print, 13 years. And today those same books are now translated into almost every language in the world.
And the originals sell for the most ungodly sums of money.
They're very rare and in demand by book collectors. It's not a rational market. It's like stamp collecting.
That's very true, but we benefit from it, let me tell you. I noticed there was kind of a nice tribute to that in the opening of Neon Rain, because you've got Dave out fishing.
Yeah.
In that area, and a body bobs up, and so the story gets going. I like Neon Rain, but I actually, it may be, I've said In the Electric Mist is my favorite, but my next favorite, and of course I haven't read the new ones, so perhaps that will turn out eventually to be my favorite, is Heaven's Prisoners, which I think is an absolutely wonderful story.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
But one thing that interests me is that when you wrote Neon Rain, Dave is a cop in the New Orleans cop shop, and he therefore not only has to investigate the crime, but he also has to deal with all the business of the cop shop. Plus, he has this sort of kick-ass partner, Cletus.
Cleet Purcell's quite a guy.
Yep. Who is an interesting agent for justice in your books, but he himself at the end of Neon Rain kind of scoops the swag and beats it out of New Orleans just ahead of a warrant, if I remember.
That's right. Cleet gets into some serious trouble.
So one novel, you've got Dave as a cop, and then at the end of Neon Rain, he resigns, and he goes off to open the Robichaux bait and fish shop in New Iberia.